My fiancée mocked my accent in front of her friends, so I called off the wedding. It's packed quietly and left her explaining it to her parents alone. I'm a 29-year-old guy who's always felt like I had to prove myself twice as hard just to be taken seriously. I grew up in a small southern town where hard work meant sweat, calloused hands, and not much recognition. When I finally got a stable job in the city, I carried that accent with me, thick, unpolished, and full of the place that made me who I am. But in meetings, I could see it. The raised eyebrows, the polite smiles, the subtle condescension. People assumed country meant slow. I learned to laugh it off, even when it stung. Then I met Claire. God, she was different. Or at least I thought so. We met at a friend's birthday dinner, and she was everything I wasn't. Well-spoken, confident, sharp as a knife. When I joked about my southern drawl, she smiled and said, "I love it. You sound real." That word real hit me harder than I expected. Nobody had ever said it like that before. For the first time in a long while, I felt seen, not judged. We started dating soon after, and every moment felt like something out of a movie. She'd tease me about my old truck, my homemade dinners, my small-town habits, but it always sounded playful, never cruel. She made me believe love could bridge worlds, hers, with champagne brunches and art galleries, mine with barbecue smoke and Sunday football. I remember the night she introduced me to her friends for the first time. I spent hours making sure I looked presentable, practiced how I said certain words so I wouldn't sound too country. She noticed and laughed, saying, "You don't have to change a thing, baby. I love your voice." At that moment, I believed her completely. But looking back now, I should have noticed the difference between love and tolerance. The longer Claire and I were together, the clearer it became that we came from completely different worlds. Her family lived in a gated community where every house looked like it came straight out of a magazine. Her parents were polite, but I could feel the unspoken question in their eyes. What's he doing here? I tried to fit in. I really did. I wore nicer clothes, learned which fork to use at those long dinner tables, and practiced smiling through conversations I barely understood. Her father talked about investment portfolios. Her mother compared vacation homes. When they asked about my family, I told them about my dad's auto shop and my mom's church bake sales. Claire laughed and added, "He's such a small-town guy, but that's part of his charm." Everyone chuckled. I smiled too, pretending it didn't burn. Her friends weren't much different. They were all professionals, lawyers, designers, consultants, the kind who wore confidence like designer suits. They'd joke about my accent sometimes, asking me to say that again just to hear it. One of them even called me country charming after a few glasses of wine, and everyone laughed, including Claire. I remember catching her eye across the table, silently asking for backup for her to say something, anything. But she just smirked and said, "See? They love you." I told myself it wasn't a big deal, that they didn't mean harm, that Claire wasn't mocking me, she was just trying to help me blend in. I kept telling myself that love means compromise, that I should be proud of how far I'd come. But somewhere deep inside, I started to wonder if I was the only one compromising. Because no matter how hard I tried to belong in her world, it was starting to feel like I was the entertainment, not the partner. It's strange how love can turn into something that slowly makes you hate yourself. At first, I didn't even realize it was happening. It started small, me replaying my own voice in my head after talking to her friends. Noticing how drawn out my vowels sounded, I began pausing before speaking, running words through a mental filter, wondering if I sounded smart enough. I started watching videos online about how to neutralize your accent. I'd repeat sentences in front of the bathroom mirror, trying to make my tone flatter, cleaner. Claire caught me once and laughed, saying, "Oh babe, you're so cute when you try to be fancy." It was meant as a joke, but I could feel something in me flinch. At social events, I began speaking less. I'd nod, smile, and sip my drink while she held the spotlight. She loved attention, especially when she was surrounded by people from her world. Her coworkers, her friends, her clients, they adored her confidence, her charm. I became her quiet accessory, the down-earth. Fiancée, she could show off to balance her sophistication. Her career was taking off. Promotions, business trips, praise from her boss. I was proud of her, truly. But with every success, I felt smaller, like I was being left behind. When I brought up my own ideas, like starting my own small repair business, or buying a modest home outside the city, she'd roll her eyes and say, "You have to think bigger, babe. Don't be so small town." That phrase stuck like a thorn. Small town. Once it used to make me proud. Now it felt like an insult. A reminder that I'd never be enough in her world, and the more I tried to change myself to fit in, the more invisible I became to her. Claire had been talking about that party for weeks. Her firm's annual celebration, the kind of event with champagne fountains, string quartets, and people who used words like networking instead of conversation. I told her I wasn't sure I'd fit in, but she insisted. "Babe, you'll be fine. Everyone loves you. Just be yourself." The night started better than I expected. The rooftop glowed with soft golden lights, the skyline stretched endlessly, and the laughter of expensive people filled the air. I clutched my drink like a lifeline, smiling through introductions. Claire looked stunning, elegant, confident, perfectly in her element. I stayed close, nodding when introduced as her fiancé, the southern gentleman. Then it happened. One of her coworkers, clearly tipsy, leaned over and grinned. "Hey," he said, slurring just a little, "you've got that cute accent? Say something funny?" Like, I don't know, a cowboy thing or something. I froze. The laughter started even before I could respond. Claire rolled her eyes playfully. Then, to my absolute horror, she joined in. She puffed out her chest, widened her grin, and drawled in an exaggerated southern voice. "Oh, shucks, darlin', ain't this fancy? Y'all city folks sure are something else." The crowd roared. Phones were out. Someone actually clapped. And there I was, standing beside the woman I planned to marry. Watching her turn the thing I'd always been self-conscious about into a circus act, my cheeks burned, my stomach twisted. I forced a smile, pretending it was funny, but my hands were trembling. Claire laughed so hard she had to wipe her eyes, then leaned over to peck my cheek and whisper, "Relax, it's just a joke." But in that moment, it wasn't a joke, it was a realization. She wasn't laughing with me anymore. She was laughing at me. I tried to laugh, I really did. My voice came out shaky, somewhere between a chuckle and a choke. The laughter around me echoed like 1,000 knives scraping against glass. I looked around, pretending to find it funny, but inside, something was breaking. My fiancée, the woman I thought loved me for who I was putting on a show, and I was the punchline. Then I saw it. Someone had their phone up, recording. I could see the red light reflecting off their screen as they zoomed in. My face, her impression, the crowd's laughter. It was all being captured, a viral moment at my expense. "Hey, could you not?" I started, but Claire grabbed my arm lightly and whispered through a forced smile. "Babe, relax, it's just a joke. Don't make it awkward." Her words hit me harder than the laughter. Don't make it awkward. As if my humiliation was less important than her image, I felt my throat tighten. The music, the chatter, the laughter, it all blurred into a dizzying hum. My chest felt like it was caving in. I excused myself quietly, saying I needed some air. Nobody even noticed. Outside, the cold night air hit my face like a slap. I walked to the far end of the terrace, gripping the railing so tightly my knuckles turned white. The city lights shimmered below, but all I could see was my reflection in the window re-eyed, smiling broken. I felt tears sting my eyes before I could stop them. I hadn't cried in years, but they came now, heavy and bitter. Every insecurity, every harmless joke, every time I tried to fit in, it all crashed down at once. That night, under those glittering city lights, I realized something painful. I was done laughing to make other people comfortable. The next morning felt surreal. It's like the world had pressed rewind, but left me behind in slow motion. I woke up with that same tight feeling in my chest, the kind that sits there even after the tears are gone. Claire was humming in the kitchen, flipping pancakes, wearing my hoodie like nothing had happened for a few seconds. I almost believed it hadn't. Then she turned around and smiled. You were such a hit last night, she said cheerfully. Everyone loved you. I stared at her, trying to process the words. Claire, they were laughing at me. You were laughing at me, she blinked, feigning confusion.
What, babe? No!
You're taking it too seriously. It was a joke. You need to lighten up a little. That's your problem. You're too sensitive sometimes. Too sensitive. That phrase hit like a dagger wrapped in velvet. I wanted to argue, but the way she looked at me, calm, composed, slightly annoyed, made me feel like I was overreacting. It didn't feel right, I said quietly. She sighed, setting down her coffee mug. This is exactly what I mean. You always twist things into drama. You're insecure about your accent, and somehow it's my fault? I was just trying to make everyone feel comfortable. The words twisted in my head until they started making sense. My fault. Maybe she was right. Maybe I was too sensitive. I muttered an apology, voice small, while she gave me that forgiving smile that made me feel like a child being scolded gently. Later, when she leaned against me on the couch, scrolling through her phone, I forced myself to smile. To pretend it was fine, but deep down I knew something had cracked. Not just my pride, but my trust. And once trust starts to crack, it doesn't take long before it shatters. It had been a few days since the party, and Claire was acting like everything was fine, planning the wedding, texting vendors, even sending me Pinterest boards of color schemes. I was trying to move on, bury the humiliation under routine. But some wounds don't close. They just wait for something sharp to reopen them. That something sharp came on a Wednesday afternoon. A buddy from work, someone who didn't even know Claire personally, sent me a message. Dude, is this you? Attached was a short video. My stomach dropped the moment I hit play. There I was, standing awkwardly at the party, glass in hand. And then came her voice, Claire's voice, mimicking me with that exaggerated country twang while the crowd laughed. The caption read, "When your fiancée's straight out of the cornfields." The comments were brutal. Bless his heart, he's trying. She could do so much better. This is comedy gold. I can't stop replaying it. There in the background, I could hear it, her laugh. Loud, unashamed, proud. I felt my throat tighten as I scrolled through the reactions. Hundreds of views, dozens of likes. People I didn't even know were laughing at me. And she hadn't even told me. When I showed her the clip that evening, her face went pale for a second. Then she quickly covered it with irritation. Oh my God, it's not that big of a deal. I didn't post it. Someone else did. But you're laughing in it, I said quietly. So, what was I supposed to do? Stoneface everyone. You're overreacting again. At night. Lying in bed beside her, I stared at the ceiling, listening to her steady breathing. For the first time, I didn't feel small or sad. I felt angry. Quietly, dangerously angry. By the next morning, that video had spread even further, reposted, shared in group chats, commented on by people who didn't even know me. It wasn't just a bad joke anymore. It was a digital scar, something that would outlive apologies. I sat at the kitchen table, the clip open on my phone, waiting for her to wake up when she walked in. Yawning and scrolling through her notifications, I said quietly, "You might want to check your social media." She froze when she saw the screen. Her smile disappeared, replaced by panic. Oh my God. People are still sharing it? Yeah, I said, keeping my voice even. You made me a joke. You said you loved my voice, and now it's a hashtag. Her eyes darted around the room like she was looking for a way out. Okay, just calm down. I'll delete it. I'll talk to my friends. I'll make it go away. Please don't make a scene right now, okay? My parents are already asking about the wedding. That line, "don't make a scene," hit harder than any insult could. Not "I'm sorry." Not "I hurt you." Just don't embarrass me. I stared at her, realizing she wasn't scared of losing me. She was scared of losing face, of people seeing the cracks in her perfect image. She rushed to her phone, deleting comments, messaging friends, desperately trying to clean the mess. I watched silently, the anger in me cooling into something sharper at clarity. When she was done, she turned back with a forced smile. See? It's fixed. Can we please move on? I nodded slowly. Not because I forgave her, but because I'd already decided something. The wedding would never happen, and when I left, I'd make sure the only one left explaining herself was her. After that confrontation, something in me went still. Not broken still. Like a lake after a storm, calm on the surface, but deep and cold underneath. I stopped arguing, stopped explaining. I smiled when she spoke, nodded when she planned, laughed when she wanted to laugh. And every time she thought things were back to normal, I was already planning my exit. It started with the small things. I called the florists and canceled the wedding arrangements, told them there had been a change in plans. The deposit was non-refundable, but I didn't care. I contacted the caterer next, the venue after that, then the photographer. One by one, I untangled myself from every promise I'd made in her name. At night, after she fell asleep, I'd pack a few things, clothes, keepsakes, documents, and quietly store them in the trunk of my car. Each night, the apartment grew a little emptier, and she never noticed. She was too busy curating her bridal content for social media, posting captions like counting down the days until forever. I even took a week off work, told my boss I needed personal time. He didn't ask questions, and I didn't offer answers. There were moments where she'd glance at me and say, "You've been quiet lately," to which I'd smile and reply, "Just tired." And she'd accept it because she'd never looked beneath the surface. I didn't want a scene. I didn't want revenge in flames or public shouting matches. I wanted silence, the kind that makes people question what they did to cause it. Every night, look at her sleeping beside me and feel nothing. No hate, no love, just a quiet understanding. By the time she realized I was gone, it would already be too late to fix anything. The morning of the rehearsal felt eerily peaceful, too quiet for what it represented. Claire was buzzing with excitement, darting between the mirror and her phone, finalizing last-minute details with the coordinator. She didn't notice me watching her, memorizing the face of the woman I had once imagined forever with. My suitcase was already in the car. The ring sat on the dresser. All that was left was the note. I'd written it the night before, my handwriting trembling slightly from the weight of finality. It wasn't long or angry, just the truth written plainly. You mocked the man you were supposed to marry. I won't spend my life being your punchline. I placed it beside her jewelry tray and took one last look around the apartment. Every photo, every shared memory, every inside joke, all of it felt like it belonged to someone else's life. I left my phone on the counter, powered off. No texts, no explanations, no dramatic goodbye. Just silence, the same silence she'd given me when I needed her to stand by me. By the time her parents and bridesmaids arrived that afternoon, I was miles away. From what mutual friends later told me, chaos unfolded quickly. Her mother was hysterical, her father furious. Guests were calling, vendors panicking, her friends whispering behind her back. And in the middle of it all stood Claire, trying to smile, pretending she had no idea why I left. Pretending she hadn't turned the man she loved into a meme. I imagined her holding that note, reading those words over and over, realizing there was no one to blame but herself, no confrontation, no shouting. Just the echo of my absence, the loudest statement I'd ever made. And for the first time, I felt peace. The first few weeks after I left felt strange, like living in the aftermath of a storm. Everything was quieter, lighter. I'd wake up in a small rented cabin a few towns over, drink my coffee on the porch, and just listen to the wind. No buzzing phone, no nervous glances, no pretending. Just peace, the kind I hadn't felt in years. It didn't take long for the whispers to reach me. A mutual friend called, hesitant, before saying, "Man, it's all over. Everyone's talking about what happened." Apparently, word of my disappearance had spread like wildfire. Her parents were furious, not because she lost me, but because she embarrassed them. The wedding was canceled, the vendors refused to refund. People started asking uncomfortable questions. Then, the same video, that video resurfaced online. Only this time, the tone was different. The comments weren't laughing anymore. They were condemning. Imagine mocking your fiancé like that. It's disgusting. He dodged a bullet. That man deserves better. Her friends started deleting posts, trying to distance themselves from her. Her picture-perfect image was crumbling, and there was nothing she could do to stop it. A week later, she started emailing me. Long messages filled with apologies, excuses, and justifications. She said she didn't mean to hurt me, that it was a moment of bad judgment. Then came the voice messages, her voice trembling, crying, begging me to talk to her. But I didn't. I never replied. Not because I wanted to punish her, but because I didn't need to anymore. The silence was the only response. She deserved, and every day that passed without me saying a word. She finally got to feel what I had felt for months, small, unseen, and powerless. Months passed, and with each sunrise, the weight of that old life lifted a little more. I eventually moved to a small coastal town, the kind where everyone waves when you drive by, and nobody cares what kind of car you have or how you pronounce your words. The air smelled like salt and second chances. For the first time in years, I felt like myself again. No masks, no corrections, no rehearsed sentences before speaking. People here didn't laugh when I said y'all or when my vowels stretched a little longer than they should. They listened. They smiled. And they understood. I started volunteering at a local library, reading children's books out loud during weekend story time. One day, someone suggested I record audiobooks, said my voice had character. Within months, my recordings were gaining traction online. People left comments like, "Your voice feels comforting and I could listen to you all day." That voice, the one I'd once tried to hide, reshape, erase, was now my strength, my livelihood. My identity. Sometimes I'd think about Claire. I never hated her. Not anymore. Hate takes energy, and I'd rather spend mine living. Maybe she learned something from all of it. Maybe she didn't, but that's not my story to tell. One evening, as I watched the sunset melt into the ocean, I caught my reflection in the window, relaxed, content, free. I realized that every moment of humiliation, every tear, every quiet night packing my things had led me right here to peace. And as the waves rolled in, I said it out loud, softly but with pride. She laughed at my accent, but in the end, it spoke louder than her apologies ever could. That's the thing about voices. When they stop apologizing for existing, they finally get heard.